is our last day together doing Dialogue with Debbie. You know, it's been fun. And I've had lots of laughs. I've had a lot of nervous times because it's live, well, at least face-to-face. Not live, but pre-recorded. But you know, it's been really fun to do. I enjoy it at camp meeting, but this has been fun also. Today we're going to go up to Yellowknife. Have you been to Yellowknife? I haven't, but I've been invited, so you never know. I may be going to Yellowknife. But you know, Jonathan Geraci has been up there for I think 5 or some years already, and he's loving it up there. You won't want to miss hearing him because he's full of energy and love for the Lord. He will be with me, and then right when he's finished, we're going to show a video that they prepared for the mission up in Yellowknife. So don't leave because it's very informative. After that, we're going to talk to Lynn McDowell. And you all know Lynn. She does planned giving and trust services, and she also does philanthropy. And she's always got something going. So you won't want to miss that one either. And the last segment. I love to do a wrap-up with the administration. So you need to come and just listen because, you know, we're going to talk about the good, maybe the interesting part of virtual camp meeting for the first time. So thank you for being with me this whole week as we've done Dialogue with Debbie. And maybe next summer we'll be back at Foothills Camp. But if not, we'll do this again. Thank you again for listening, and I hope that you've learned something and have enjoyed it. Bye now.
Isolated.
So expensive to travel.
Depression.
The darkness. We have so much darkness.
Substance abuse. The suicide rates are higher.
They become suspicious of visitors.
Just as they get involved, the people are gone.
In 1962, an Adventist pastor and his wife, James and Virginia Cooper, built a boat and sailed up the Mackenzie River, visiting different indigenous communities and sharing Adventist literature, exposing themselves to one of the most inhospitable places on the planet. The Northwest Territories has over 1 million square kilometers, 11 official languages, in 33 communities. For this is what the Lord has commanded us. I have made you a light for the Gentiles, that you may bring salvation to the ends of the earth.
I love the summers here because it's pretty well always dry. Lots of fishing, hiking.
24 hours of light. I find the North actually quite a comfortable place to live.
The people are extremely warm, and maybe they're warm to compensate for the climate outside, but it's a very friendly, warm place to live.
We kind of get to make our own entertainment and our own fun, and so it provides a real community kind of feel. For the last 19 years, I've been a school counselor and more recently a school psychologist. The suicide rates are higher both in Northwest Territories and Nunavut than in other parts of Canada. Those issues are related to depression, substance abuse, and past trauma, and even trauma that's continuing to go on in people's lives. Many of the communities in the territories are very isolated. They're fly-in communities, not accessible by a road system. For most of the year, some of them have winter road systems. So it's very hard for those people to access services.
Things are spread out so much. It's so expensive to travel. I've been all in a few places like Cambridge Bay and Tuktoyaktuk, and it's a great need here.
When my husband and I first moved to Yellowknife, I remember meeting in this church building with about 14 people each Sabbath. But now the church has grown to where we often have between 60 and 70 people meeting each Sabbath. Just that increase in number of people has really opened the door for a lot more programs that we're able to offer, a lot more outreach to the community. For Families is a program that was started by my husband, Blake. The emphasis was to provide activities and supports for families within the church and within the broader community, and offering different classes for ukulele lessons, vegetarian cooking, making photo books.
I am a hotelier, and I've had the distinct pleasure of living in many places around the world. One of the challenges that you will find in any remote community is that they become suspicious of visitors.
People got used to other denominations and things coming and going, and just as they get involved, the people are gone, and they're left again in the same situation as before.
So when somebody comes in for 2 months or worse, for 2 weeks, they tend not to have the impact that we are all looking for.
A very close friend of mine that I met back at the mines years ago, came to talk to him about Christ, and we discussed things for 6 years. Then he decided he wanted to be baptized. A bunch of us went from here to Fort Resolution and baptized him. Beautiful little town. It was right on the Great Slave Lake. It was actually a 7-hour drive. And it's a town of maybe 400 people, mostly Aboriginal, but there are people in there from all over. That person has a real burning interest in evangelizing his town. So since then, the church body from here, we went there and followed up, and the people were very gracious to us.
It's important that we connect with locals and have locals bring you into the community. Once this local takes you into the community, he or she will be putting their reputation on the line and said, yes, this is a friend that can be trusted. Friends will hang around. Friends don't just come in and disappear. Working with Vacation Bible School in the north, it's a breath of fresh air. You learn so much from the young people. I also get so excited when I see young people having fun in Jesus' name. In this one group, the Dene Nations, I pulled the coordinator aside and I said, I couldn't help but notice the excitement in your voice when I said, yes, you could come. And she says, oh, you know, you guys, over the years, you do such a great job with the children. They're excited about coming, they're learning things, and you're not being offensive. And we love it.
Eagle, yes. And the animals can be dangerous, and we shouldn't approach them alone, right?
If you take the time to look for negatives, you can find negatives. But I've also learned the true challenge about living in the north is how empowered you become to find solutions. I have the greatest pleasure working with the Pathfinders because I get to see all of the joy. baking bread. And one of the Aboriginal children asked me, what does baking bread have to do with Christ? And we had a wonderful half an hour of conversation about the different times that Jesus referred to bread, how that the devil tempted Christ, that he made the stone into bread. But then we got into how we use different ingredients to make the bread, and a lot of those ingredients by themselves would not taste good, but when combined together carefully, it makes for a wonderful tasting bread. And the church is the same way. We have different personalities, different cultures, and they come together and God bless us and make us a wonderful church. The greatest sermon you can preach is the life you live. The more people we have to live it, the more effective our ministry is going to be.
What people need most is commitment.
It has to be somebody who is willing to dive in totally, be a part of the local culture.
Anything that builds relationships and connects with people lays the foundation for really great mission work.
We have seen great support pour out from all over North America, but we still need more help. God is calling you today. Will you pray? Will you give? Will you come?
And today we're going to go all the way up north to Yellowknife, because he's in Yellowknife and I'm down here in Lacombe, and we're going to talk about Yellowknife because Yellowknife is part of our conference. Jonathan Geraci, now you might have to tell me if I said that right, but Pastor Jonathan has been up in Yellowknife for quite some time. Just tell me about yourself, Jonathan.
Well, we've been up here for almost 5 years now. I'm married and we have 3 kids. Our youngest is about a month old now.
I was going to congratulate you.
Yes, that's exciting. So, yeah, we enjoy living up here. It's a very family-friendly community. I'm telling you, in our church, we probably have close to 20 kids that are under 12 years old. So it's a very young and vivacious church. You really get a sense of the remoteness when you start driving north. And from camp meeting every year, we drive 22 hours north, past Edmonton, past Smoky Lake, past High Level, all the way up to Yellowknife. So it's pretty amazing because as you're driving, it's just wilderness and trees and rocks and lakes, and it's a beautiful area. And then you're like, am I ever gonna get to Yellowknife? And then finally you pop out on this small community of 20,000 people. So it's a really neat experience.
So you get to see lots of wildlife on those trips, or not? Is there wildlife on the way?
There is. Usually around the border, there's you get to see some buffalo. You see Arctic foxes. You see different things. Occasionally a moose as you drive up. So yes.
And I hope you don't do it all in 22 hours.
Most of the time, no. Most of the time we stop in High Level and.
Do you drive down then just before camp meeting, or do you usually come down and take some vacation? How often do you come down from Yellowknife?
So usually we drive out once a year. And so you're right. We sometimes combine that with vacations. The past couple Christmases, we've also flown out and visited family in different areas. And so yeah, at least once a year, sometimes twice a year we get out. But Yellowknife is its own community. It's the capital, and so it has a lot more resources than you would expect from any other community of 20,000 people. So it's home.
It's home. And you've done it for 5 years. That's amazing. Congratulations. That's
Thank you.
quite a feat to be up there by yourselves. Do you get family to come and visit you?
Occasionally, we have different family members that come, but it is so far north that it's quite a bit of traveling for most of them. So like my parents haven't come up here yet as well. So
Well, I think they would have to fly. The 22-hour drive is a little bit much.
there we go. There we go. Yes, yes.
Well, you've been in Yellowknife for that long, so I'm just going to ask you a little bit about your church. What's your church like? Tell me about the church.
Oh man, we have the most amazing church in the conference. You're gonna have to come and check it out sometime.
They never send me up there. You have to request it.
Yes, we have to get you up here. We have to get you up here. So, you know what? It's a very multi-ethnic church from around the world. We have our Filipinos, we have Jamaicans, we have Punjabi, we have all sorts of different nationalities. We even have a few Canadians thrown in there as well. So
well, probably they're Canadians too by the time they live there a while.
very true, very true. But it's a very multi-ethnic church, and we celebrate our diversity in that. It's also a very young church. I mean, when we have 20 kids come up for Children's Story, it's kind of an exciting experience. It's
Is it kind of a transient church then too? People come for a year or two and then leave and come and go, or do they come up and stay like you have?
Traditionally, people come with a 3 to 5 year plan. You can make lots of money in the north, and so people come to pay off debt. Sometimes they come first generation immigrants from different places internationally, and so they come to Yellowknife. But usually they come with a plan. They're going to work, save a lot of money for 3 to 5 years, and then move on. But we do have a few people that love it so much they stay long term. So it is a transient community, but it's also probably one of the friendliest places I've been to. Yellowknife as a whole, the church and community is very welcoming and warming.
Well, that's really encouraging, because I know that some people thrive in that kind of environment and some people can't take it. but there are some people that have been core members of that church for a long time. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Would you say that's about half of your congregation, or is it less than half? Or
I guess long term is relative. We have
maybe
one
10
family
years.
who's been here 10 years. 10 years. Yeah, I would say probably a quarter. Maybe a quarter to a half. We have some members that have been in the community for 25 years up in the north.
Wow.
But a lot of people, they've been up here for 7 to 10 years. So yeah, I would say 7 to 10 years is the average.
That's amazing. So how do you do the cultural, not differences, but how do you incorporate all those cultural things that each culture brings? How do you incorporate that into a church or a community? What do you do? What kinds of things do you do?
How do we celebrate the diversity? Sometimes it usually just comes up naturally, where in a Sabbath school discussion or part of a church service, occasionally we have people pray in different languages. We celebrate and share Indigenous culture as well. We have several Indigenous individuals. And so it's just family. It's as we do life together. The differences come up and different ways to celebrate those differences as well.
That's really fun. I mean, I remember in a church that I had been in, it was very multicultural, and we would have one culture on one Sabbath and another culture on another Sabbath, just so that people could be aware of the differences of how you celebrate things, how you worship, how you sing. So I'm thinking that probably you incorporate all of those things.
Yes, very true. Very true. Yeah, because each culture has unique gifts that they add to the mix here.
And it sounds like it's, yes, a young church, but it's got lots of children.
There we go.
So you have all the divisions and everything that normal churches do all around the world, right?
Yep, for sure.
Oh. How many regularly come to your church? What's the average?
I would
week?
say we have probably around 60 that regularly come to the church.
And does winter keep people away? Does winter keep people away at all? You know, the temperatures and things?
I'm sorry, you're gonna have to repeat yourself. You just cut out there.
I just wondered if I had. Does winter keep people away? Do they have to come from far?
The Yellowknife as a whole is a pretty close community in locality, and so no, winter doesn't usually keep people away.
Okay.
And people aren't driving. I mean, you can drive across town in 10, 15 minutes. And so it's usually nothing for people, just drive to church and stuff. So weather doesn't stop you.
You don't go driving up north farther or come from up north farther down to church.
Not usually, no.
Okay. Okay. So what kind of things do you do in the community?
We have community education classes where we try to find felt needs, maybe ukulele classes, maybe one of putting books together, different things that church members have a passion about. And that attracts people into the church. We do healthy cooking schools, depression recovery programs. One program as well that we do is, I had a church member that was very passionate about fitness. And so he planned a fitness class in the gym twice a week. And so it's really cool because we get half church members and half non-church members that come to that. And so it's a great community outreach. And when you've been a community for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, people start to know you when you go grocery shopping and when you're out exercising out on the trails and stuff. And hey, how's it going? Oh, great to see you. We haven't seen you in a while. And you have that sense of community, that sense of family that happens when you live in a small community.
Well, you know, it sounds like you have space to do some of these things too. So is the church just a church? Does it have a place for your family to live? Does it have a gym? How does that work? Or where do you do some of these things?
Well, Maranatha's very first mission trip was the Yellowknife Seventh-day Adventist Church. And people flew in from all North America to build this church in 2 weeks. And so we have a sanctuary. We have a good-sized gymnasium. We have 2 apartments in part of the same building here. So yes, it's quite the complex we have. It's really neat how the vision that they had all those years ago for a church, but more than a church, it's a community center.
So do you have any idea what year that would have started?
I would say that's probably close to 50 years ago.
Oh, so, wow.
And probably 1970, but again, that's a ballpark. I didn't look that up, so.
Well, I didn't know I was going to ask you that either, but you know, I know that I've known people that have lived up there and it's been a long time ago, so it could be close to that length of time.
Yeah, for sure.
So do you do any other kind of outreach? Do you do vacation Bible schools? Do you do things for the community or specifically for the community or some kind of evangelism?
Definitely. We have Pathfinders going on, which we incorporate our youth into that. Also, our youth program, we have friends church members that invite their public school friends to do social events together as well, whether that's cooking or gym nights. We have, what other community events? We do a traditional evangelistic series.
Oh, you do?
And so next year we're having Chris Holland come up, and a couple of years later we're going to have Mike Lemon come up as well. And so it's just kind of exciting to see the World Church supporting the mission work in the Northwest Territories.
Because it really is a mission, isn't it?
It is. What I tell people is, you know what? I have 40,000 church members. Some of them don't realize they're Adventists yet, but I still have 40,000 members.
Well, that's a good way to look at it, you know. I know that you're part of the conference and you might feel that you aren't because you're so far away. Do you get support from the conference?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. I mean, part of Alberta Advance goes to the mission work in the Northwest Territories. We also get regular speakers that come up from the conference office and different pastors and stuff from the conference that comes as well.
So I know that the administration has usually gone up once a year at least. Did a mission trip go up there once? The youth, did they come up one time?
Yeah, I mean, for several years we had Stormco that came up here. Yeah, and we also have every summer we have Vacation Bible School. Every summer we have colporteurs come up. Actually, the Seventh-day Adventist Church started by colporteurs in the Northwest Territories 50 years ago. Yep. So it's like when I got up here, I was like, you know what, we need to get colporteurs up here. So praise the Lord for that. And they've not only hit Yellowknife, but the surrounding communities. I think of Hay River and Fort Resolution, some of these other small communities. We've also done Vacation Bible Schools in remote communities as well. And so and we've planned mission trips from Yellowknife to go into remote communities, because when you're dealing with 33 communities and 11 different languages spread over 1 million square kilometers, it doesn't happen by one individual or several individuals. It happens with a church. It happens with a conference. It happens with a world church coming together to go to every nation, kindred, tongue, and people.
You know, that just sounds mind-boggling for some of us that haven't traveled up there. It sounds like it's fun, though. Are you having great weather right now because it's summer?
Yeah, definitely. We're having great weather. I was just out there. It's not super hot, but it's warm enough that you can get active with shorts and t-shirts. So definitely.
And does the sun ever go down?
That's a relative term. I mean, it will get dusk around 11:30 at night and then come up again at 1:30 in the morning. So, yeah. So but again, the long summer days have advantageous aspects of it and stuff. And I'm also part of Yellowknife Search and Rescue. And so we've had summer searches where we don't get off from searching for people till midnight and then come back to Yellowknife and have to do it again the next day. So.
So you're out in the community. Do you have a pastoral association up there of some sort, or a ministerial, I guess, association that you can belong to?
For sure. For the past 5 years, I have been involved with the Yellowknife Ministerial. I also led the Yellowknife Ministerial for 1 year. And while I was there, I encouraged them, and we did professional development together as a core group of ministers in Yellowknife. So it's a very supportive network.
And I'm just going to ask this, and maybe you don't have any, but have you had baptisms?
Yes, we have. We have.
So. That's really good. Well, you know, our 15 minutes is just about up, but I know that the next segment is going to be a video that you and some of the church members have done. And I just want you to introduce it a little bit so that when listeners come on here and see the Yellowknife portion of this program, they'll know what they're going to see next.
Okay. Well, I just want to encourage you, while it's a fun video that our church has put together, this is not entertainment. This is for engagement. Perhaps God is calling you to be a missionary in the North. And so I want to encourage you that if God is calling you to be a missionary in the North, to reach out to me through the church Facebook page or the church website, yellowknifeadventist.ca, because God has people, and he wants Seventh-day Adventist families, Seventh-day Adventist young people to go into every nation, kindred, tongue with people. And that includes all 33 communities in the Northwest Territories. So thank you for your time, and have a blessed day.
And thank you for being with me for this portion. And for those that are watching, I hope that you will take advantage of staying here so that you can see the video that has been done of the Yellowknife Church and surrounding areas, and the pastor and his family, I'm sure. Thank you so much, Jonathan. I hope that we get to see you before the year is out, because, you know, camp meeting is not the same as usual.
Very true. Very true.
But thank you for being with me, and we will pray for you as we continue on with camp meeting and the rest of the year. Thank you.
Thanks so much for your time. Appreciate that.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
And it's always nice to have Lynn McDowell with me. Welcome to the program today.
Well, nice to be back again, Debbie. It's nice to see you.
It's actually quite different, isn't it? Because we haven't seen each other in a long time because of COVID.
I know.
Working from home.
It's very, very, I've missed you.
Oh, well, that's good. That's really good. I'm still home by myself for quite some time because I took some time off, and now I have to isolate again. So here I am. But we're glad that we can talk this way, virtually. So you have a department at the Alberta Conference, and let's remind people about what it is.
Well, it's the Department of Plan Giving and Philanthropy. And so it's kind of a big area to cover, but it's very exciting.
Is trust services in there too? Plan Giving, trust services, is that sort of part of it?
Well, that's the North American division handle. We, in Canada, trust services is not really a thing. So when we talk to the NAD, we're Plan Giving, Trust Services. When I talk to Canadians, it's Plan Giving and Philanthropy.
Good to know. I didn't know that. That's a good thing that people maybe did not know either. So let me ask you about one of the biggest projects you've had in the last couple of years has been the MANS Project. And the MANS Project, you can tell me all sorts of things about, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, I could probably spend the rest of the afternoon talking about the MANS Project, but we won't go there. Part of it's part of the Mascochise outreach, which we changed the name in the messenger. So if you go to the messenger page, that's what it says now. It's the Mascochise Project, because the school is actually one of the arms of the church that's working in Mascochise on the reserves there. The other one is the congregation that's been in place for a number of years. But it's all part of one vision. And so I was really pleasantly informed this morning. I think you were there when Dr. Kevin Burrell was talking about the church's mission way back when, and Mrs. White's vision for the church to have an active role in uplifting marginalized people. And so I think the Alberta Conference is a real leader in this regard, working in MANS as they have for many years now. And
so this is the project that you did with MANS, or the Mascochise group?
Right. Well, it started actually several years ago with the Bridge campaign, which completed. We raised a lot of money to build the high school, because what we found was the kids were getting to grade 9, which is as far as Mamawe-Etoskata Native School went, and then they kind of fall off, the education bandwagon, and were never heard from again in high school. So that's why we decided to go ahead and build a high school, which was actually completed and opened in the fall of 2018. So now we have a facility in place where the real work of Mamawe-Etoskata Native School can happen. And that work is working with kids and bringing them all the way through an Adventist education system to grade 12 and graduating. And so this year, Grad 2020 was an exceptional year. And I think it's the beginning of seeing the real fruit of our labors, because this was the biggest class yet. We had 6 graduates. And
really? When was graduation?
Graduation was on June 16.
Mm-hmm.
And for a long time, nobody thought there was going to be an actual graduation ceremony because of COVID. And in fact, ours is the only school on the reserves or in that Mascochise area that actually had a ceremony. And, sort of a string of minor miracles there. But the kids worked hard, the teachers worked hard, and 6 of the high school seniors were able to graduate and complete. So not only that, it was historic for other reasons too. We had 2 valedictorians.
Oh,
I've never heard of 2 valedictorians, but there's a couple of ways to calculate the grade point average of high school students. If you did it one way, one girl was valedictorian by 0.01 points, and the other girl, if you did it the other way, was the valedictorian by the same amount. Just a minor difference. And so they named them both valedictorian, because how do you choose when one system gives you 2 different results? So we have 2 valedictorians, and these girls have so much get up and go. They applied to Berman before graduation and were accepted into the business program and into the pre-med program.
that's exciting.
It's very exciting. And they're best friends. And well, I'm not sure when this, I think it will be posted, but we have interviews from Sabbath Morning Live that will be posted of these girls talking about that experience and going through MANS and their excitement about going on to Berman.
So in 2018 was when the first high school class started, or kids went into grade 11 and 12 at that point. Is that right? So it's only taken a couple of years to get several graduations or several graduates.
Well, actually, there was more than that in terms of number of high school graduation classes, because 2018 was when we opened the physical school. That was when the work was completed on the building. However, they added grades one at a time. So for a few years before that, they were kind of bringing that out grade 11 or grade 10, and then the next year grade 11, and then grade 12. So there's actually been, this is the 5th graduating class.
Well, that's exciting too. I saw a little bit online. Somebody had posted something to me because there was awards given out besides. Is that usual?
Well, there was the Caring Heart Award was given from the church in Canada, and that was given to a grade 11 student. But there was a number of scholarships. All told, there was a huge number of scholarships, but the kids are going to have to work to keep them. So if they're keep 3.9 GPA, the 2 valedictorians can get scholarships from Berman that will carry them through.
Oh, well, that's good. And if there's 2 of them at Berman together, they will help each other to probably buoy each other up and make sure that they keep their grades up as they go through their first year of university.
And that's what we found with COVID, that they did that. They encouraged each other and they helped each other get through. And they're excited about it. They are.
And that was working online then too, right?
That was working online, independent, not having any visual, contact. I mean, well, they can do Zoom, but
visual like this.
Visual like this, but not the kind of closeness that they're used to. And one of the girls said it was hard to stay motivated, but they did it. And as one of the parents who was at the graduation, she was so emotional actually at the graduation. Her son is the first in his family to actually graduate from high school. And he has represented Maskwacis youth in Ottawa, talking about the youth perspective on their situation.
That's amazing.
It's amazing. Yeah, we've got some stellar students out there. And the mother of this boy, Evan Lewis, Michelle is her name. I jotted down what she said because I thought it was so on point. And what she said was, okay, you have finished what you started. To top it off, you finished it during a worldwide pandemic. That means the 6 of you are capable of anything in life. And as our elders say, don't give up. Keep going. So
that's a wonderful story, isn't it?
It really, These parents are so proud. They see the value of what's happening for their kids.
Mm-hmm.
And, it just kind of really excites me because it's like what Mrs. White was expecting us to do, what she thought was important in terms of working with people who have been marginalized and helping them to help themselves.
So in reality, you're not just being a mission to the students, but you're being a mission to the family and the community at the same time.
Yes. And they're really picking up on a lot of the initiatives and what's happening for their kids at the school. Kelly Stickle, who's a guidance counselor, also being interviewed on the Sabbath Morning Live, but he tells stories about that too, how other counselors in Maskwacis are recognizing what he's doing.
That's really good, because I know it's important to have him as a resource out there for those students too. Just going back to the graduates, did they go through MANS for their whole education or just maybe part of it? Or do you know?
One of the valedictorians has been there since kindergarten.
Wow.
Yeah.
Most kids don't get to do that.
No, there's at least 2 members of the class that have had their whole education through MANS, and that was really exciting. They're not everybody who was in that situation. The other valedictorian had been there. It really depends on what's going on in the family a lot of times. Been there a little bit before in like kindergarten, but came back full tilt in high school and took all 3 years through there, emerged as a student leader. Very tentative and timid at first, but through help with teachers and integration with sports, she's one that's going on to pre-med. She's got the grades, she's got the smarts.
Very confidence building. Now I want to switch a little bit and tell me a little bit about what the rest of your job is, because I know you do fundraising. You had some seminars. What did you do this year so far before COVID?
Before COVID. And actually, one of the really exciting things that happened just before COVID pertains to the fundraising work that I do in terms of helping congregations. Because fundraising, people don't necessarily understand that it's a team effort. It's not one fundraiser going out there and finding rich people. It just doesn't work that way. It actually has to be done on the local level, and you have to have a team. So one of the things that I found really exciting was there were 5 congregations in the Alberta Conference that had qualified for under NAD, North American Division, guidelines for when churches can go ahead and build. And when that happens, the Alberta Conference is able to give them a certain amount of money to help with those projects. We had 5. And so these people were ready to really think seriously about fundraising and how do they go about getting the rest of the money they need. So we took those 5 congregations and created a weekend where Lilia Wagner from the NAD came in and did one of her seminars that was very focused, and it was small enough so that we could really get into the details of each church's situation, and that was very productive. We have gotten a lot of really good feedback on that. And the Mountain View Church was one of them that was really ready and poised to take advantage of that, because it's really interesting when you are further into the details of your project, people listen a little differently.
Yes.
And they can see how it can be applied. So it was very useful for the participants who came.
Okay, I know you could talk about that for a long time, and maybe if churches are ready, they should contact you and you will do something like this again for them. But we do need to talk about your wills, the wills that you had an initiative with because of COVID-19. We've only got a couple more minutes, so let you tell us about it.
Yeah, well, Wills Now is something that we advertised to pastors through Alberta Adventist News, the Adventist e-News Weekly, and pretty much, in the bulletins. We sent the information to the bulletins. This came about, it was an opportunity for people to get a no-cost will, and and immediate access to an Adventist lawyer. And this came about because of COVID-19, and I realized, that people were scared, and it was an unprecedented kind of time. And money, people were worried about money because they didn't know whether their jobs were secure. So the Alberta Conference stepped up. And I worked with a couple of Adventist lawyers, Shelley Smith in Edmonton, Alani Ziakris in Lacombe, and they, without hesitation, dropped their fees so that the Alberta Conference reimbursement covered it.
Wow.
For any Adventist. So more than 35 wills are either written or in process. And, not everybody has followed through because you had to send some information in. I haven't gone from everyone, but there's potentially more out there. It is a time-limited thing, though, and unfortunately, we had to cut off the intake before camp meeting started. However, we do have
there's still wills that they can do through the conference, right?
Yes, year-round we have a program whereby you work through me. I take the instructions. Initially, I send them to the lawyer of the individual's choice and work with them that way. I turn over the instructions to their lawyer. From there on, I get out of the picture. And when they've paid the lawyer, whatever the lawyer's fee is, they give me the receipt, and the conference can reimburse $300 per couple or $200 for an individual. And we run that year-round. So that's always available because this is part of good stewardship and taking care of your family. And that's a very important thing. As I found out when some of my family passed away without wills, it just causes so much more stress. And we just really need to take care of each other that way.
Well, Lynn, our time is up, and you and I could go on for a long time because I know you're passionate about your work, and I know that you have people's interest in mind as you go through your day. So I'm just going to thank you for being with me today, and anybody that wants to can get a hold of you. You have a number at the conference office. They can always call in, whether it's for wills or anything else for church fundraising and that kind of thing. And we thank you for being with me today, and we'll see you again next year.
It was a pleasure, and I'll look forward to it.
Good. Thank you so much for being with me today.
All right.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to our last segment of Dialogue with Debbie. It has been so much fun over this week, actually over a month and a half, when I've been recording all the different segments for each of the programs. And you all have heard from the administration in their own 15-minute segment, except for Pastor Hodder, who shared it with his wife. However, I thought it would be fun to have them all in studio with me today so that we can do a wrap-up of virtual camp meeting. Thank you for joining me. And let's talk to the administrators. Good morning to each of you.
Good morning, Debbie.
Morning. Good morning, Debbie.
It's always nice to be in the same room because we do laugh a lot. We do a lot of serious things, but we laugh a lot, and I like that. So I'm going to ask Pastor Hodder to just give me a little tiny overview of Virtual Camp Meeting 2020.
Well, I would say that I'm very pleased with how it's gone. This is our very first attempt at such a thing. We didn't even anticipate that we would be doing a virtual camp meeting until, of course, the COVID hit us in the spring. There's been an amazing cooperation and a great desire on the part of all of our staff to make this as meaningful as possible to those who tune in and listen. And so it's been a great experience so far. It's not something, of course, that I desire to keep repeating. I hope next year we're in person, but this has been a very good facsimile that has given us a sense of connectedness.
Yes, it has. I know we've missed a few things. It's hard to put something like this together in a short period of time, and we have done as much as possible in the month and a half, or since April 16, I looked at some minutes, And that's when we decided we were having virtual camp meetings. So, you know, it has come together. It has been good. I know that it was disappointing for the speakers that I had already asked to come to our camp meeting. And of course, they all understood, but they said, could you put me on for next year? So I have a whole list of people that are going to come to camp meeting 2021 just because they wanted to come this year and couldn't. So that's an interesting little point. Wade, I'm going to ask you if you've had any idea of how many people have virtually been to camp meeting this year so far.
So far, I think the figures are showing us that approximately 10 to 12,000 people. And that number could be easy. Those are the numbers of individuals that have logged on to the various sites, accumulatively of Alberta virtual camp meeting.ca, that site, and the Facebook and the YouTube and the Vimeo sites. So that is the accumulative number, but that number could be easily extended if you really think about it to maybe even doubling that to about maybe 20 to 25,000, because each home will have maybe 2.5 to 3 individuals in a home, and perhaps the viewership is much higher than we think, but for the actual log-ons, we're looking at about 9 to 10,000 or so.
Does that mean that once it's been broadcast, it will be gone?
No, we have an archival system, and again, that's Vimeo, that will archive the sermons. You could access the sermons usually about 2 hours after they have been broadcast initially. You can go online and you could view them on Vimeo, and also on the actual site itself, on the conference site, they usually have the ability for you to view previous programs. Yeah.
So if I missed somebody's sermon, or if I happened to listen to the adult one, but I want to hear the youth one, I can go back and just click?
Absolutely. You can just go back into the archival Vimeo, or even on the conference website, they have some archiving taking place. But for long-term archiving, you could take your time and view the children's program, all facets of the camp meeting. The programming is well documented and archived.
Now I'm wondering about the Zoom meetings. Does any of you know if they are archived too? Like, the Zoom meetings are usually the ones in the very early morning hours, 7 o'clock to 8 and 8 o'clock to 9, or whatever it is there.
I'm not sure, Debbie, but I know that the meetings are being recorded.
Oh, okay.
The early Zoom meetings are being recorded, so
the possibility is there.
To check our website and see if something is there.
I know I got in on part of one this morning, kind of from my office, but it sounded like it was very well received. There were many different families on, which I thought was very interesting.
Yes.
Was that the prayer one or the disciple one?
In disciple.
In disciple.
Yes, it's been a great morning meeting. There's been upwards to over 100 people at times, so it's been wonderful. I shouldn't say people, that's logins.
Logins, yes.
Yes, and like you say, there's whole families.
Yes.
And what's really neat about the program is they can allocate you into small groups. So everyone's in a large meeting setting, and then you get put into small groups with 6 or 7 people, and you get to personally meet people you haven't met before, and then you just share in the small groups. A wonderful format for those meetings.
And usually when this has happened at camp meeting, we have quite a few too, and I know in past camp meetings they ask us to do some copying, and every day they ask for more and more. So I'm sure that more and more, and people can go back and look and get a blessing again.
Amen.
So that's a good thing. I'm going to go back to Pastor Williams, and I just want to ask you, I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you if there's something that you really have enjoyed really a lot being virtual versus being in real life.
Well, I think virtual camp meeting has allowed me to share with the viewers the excellence of our pastors and all the different members and their participation in the camp meeting, making this happen. It's also exciting. I really have been enjoying that. What I'm not missing from our regular camp meeting is the bugs and and there's a story behind that.
I was going to say, ask him his story. It's quite
I'll leave
interesting.
that testimony for another time. But you know what I do miss about our regular camp meeting, of course, is the fellowship in person. That's just you can't compare that. The actual gathering of the saints and the messages and this is nice though. The virtual, back to the virtual. I think it's our first, as Gary has mentioned, but I think the team has done an outstanding job in putting this together. I know it's hundreds. We would even dare to venture that is over 1,000 hours, well over 1,000 hours that have been put in to this. And I watched, as it were, the meeting last night at Red Deer Church, and I really liked when the screens expanded into those sections, showing all the different parts of the participants. And it was just, it's exciting. There's something exciting and adventurous about what has been done. And I want to thank the team for that. It's just amazing.
Well, you know, if you go into the website, you can go into the brochure. And in the brochure, I had one of the IT guys actually print out the credits for me because I wanted to see how many. And I counted them this morning, if you can imagine. But I like details. So I counted them, and there was 285 on that. But that didn't include all the people that were involved with Berman University, or a lot of the children's programs, or when they did something from Chinook Winds. I mean, it said Chinook Winds and students. So, you know, there's many, many more. And in my discussion yesterday with the IT specialist, I asked him how many hours. He said, really? You want to know that? I said, yeah, it would just be fun. He said, there's thousands of hours. And, you know, at camp meeting time, we all are busy, all of us. But this is a little different because there's so many specialties that are needed to put a program together to put online. And Pastor Hodder, when we talked about going virtual, I know that you had a vision of where and why and who. Do you remember that?
Well, I remember thinking that if we can't be together in person, and of course that was pretty evident because they were closing down things and telling us that only very small groupings could be together and all of that. And we weren't sure, you know, if COVID would still be with us by the time of camp meeting, but of course you have all these plans to make. You have tickets to buy and people to book and all of that. And so you have to make a decision several months beforehand. And by January, February, March, it was pretty apparent that we were not going to be able to do this lot, that is, with everybody present. And so we thought to ourselves fairly early on, maybe we can do something. And our initial thoughts were much more modest than the production has turned out to be. We thought perhaps we could just do Sabbath morning. That would be very good if we could do Sabbath morning at least one weekend. And then we said, well, let's do it both weekends, and then let's add Sabbath school. And you know what? Why don't we can't have our speakers come in, but why don't we feature our church pastors? We don't get a chance to do that very often. So we chose some evening things, and then they said, well, what about the kids? And we gotta have a program during the day for them, and we could do the hosting the radio thing, and on it grew. And pretty soon you have a fairly well-rounded program built in there. And even now we were discussing, even just this morning, things that we could add. For instance, when we're featuring the churches in the evening and their evening speaker, we could have probably started out with a little montage of the church. You know, an outside picture, an inside, maybe a picture or two of their worship, just to get a better feel for our churches throughout the province. So if this should happen again, I think we would add that as well. And
We would start a lot sooner too.
And we would start a lot sooner. I have to say that people have been amazingly patient with one another, excited about the possibilities, and committed, willing to put countless hours into making this meaningful and effective, and so I've been very pleased.
Well, I remember being in your office and we started talking about something online, and you said to me, you know, we need to cover the province, so we'll do some in the south, we'll do some in the north, we'll do some in the central, and just pick churches and their pastors so that we could see their pastor, that we could use the whole province. I'm sure that I'm the only one that went to Yellowknife and got an interview with Jonathan Geraci, and that's happening, I mean, just happened already. So it was on Friday morning, it's Friday morning's first one. And so, you know, we have tried, you have tried as an administration to cover the province and to pick different churches throughout. So I thought that was a very interesting, that's my favorite, because I never get to hear the pastors. I don't travel like you guys do, so I don't hear the pastors. And this has been really fun for me to listen to different pastors.
Of course, we don't really hear them either. We wind up being the speakers.
Yes, when you go to somebody's church, that's true. That is true. Keith, you know, you're the person that gives us direction in many ways, especially financially. What's happening in the virtual offerings? Do you have any idea yet?
We tried to pull up reports yesterday, but it wasn't recording up-to-date information, so we weren't able to pull anything meaningful out of the reports. So we're hoping that it's there. Our main intent was to help in the areas throughout the conference that have been really affected by COVID.
Yes.
We've seen that our schools have been really affected, and this fall with the plan for schools to go back, there's going to be a whole bunch of how can I say that, precautionary things that are going to have to be in place, a lot of health things that have been put forward. So there's going to be a number of expenses for our schools. On the church side, what we're really seeing is churches that have mortgages yet and financing, it's been a hardship for them. So we're trying to help that. And then our compassion ministries, they have been busier than normal, and we've had more activity going. For example, our Mamaweya Tuscatan School has helped on the Mesquachi's area to provide food for families. Our Red Deer Soup Kitchen has been busy providing food and lunches. They put a new window in the doorways, and they pre-package all the lunches and hand them through the thing. So
they told me that on yesterday's interview. It was interesting.
Yes, yeah. So there's a lot of additional expenses happening, and so our primary concern with the offerings was to be able to help in specific areas where we see the greatest need.
Well, you know, I'm sure camp meeting costs a lot of money, and I'm not going to ask you how much a normal year costs. And I don't know what camp meeting will be this year. I'm sure it may not be as much, but with all that manpower, that some of it we could not do in-house. Consequently, there is going to be some expenses, but you always have money for camp meeting anyway. But because the people want camp meeting, right?
Yes.
That's one of the reasons that you put money away for camp meeting, because it's one of the most important times for the membership to get together.
Yeah, it reminds me of the convocations that we've seen both in the Old and New Testament, where the people gathered together, and the highlight of the community and the spiritual uplifting of the community. Camp meeting is always a highlight for me. I miss, like Wayne said, the fellowship of the people getting together. Of course, I also miss the many potlucks that happen throughout camp meeting as well. And, you know, just the scenery of being in the country. You know, not only are you being fed spiritually, but just to be able to look in the distance and see the fields and walk down by the river. It's just, you know, I really miss that part.
On yesterday's program, when I was talking to Pastor McQueen, who is the director of Foothills Camp, he was outside and he kept panning all the greenery and all the grass. And it kind of made me nostalgic because I haven't been down there for a long time. And camp meeting is that. It is the quiet. He talked about cougars, so I'm not sure that was the best part. But they have lots of wildlife down there too.
Yes.
So is there any other really something that has been good that has come out of camp meeting for you virtually?
Well, for me, as I mentioned previously, the highlight is the discipleship program in the morning, where you have the interaction with one another, meeting new people all across the province, and in particular for me, a highlight is seeing Joyce Wasilician, who has been attending our meetings, who has retired from the conference and moved to Campbell River.
Yes.
So that was one of the highlights for me, just to see people like that.
People that have come back.
Yeah, David Benjamin, who was in our office and a good friend, just being able to see him, you know, and communicate.
And if you haven't listened or watched online for today's paper, he's been doing it every day. I know I chatted with him last night telling him how wonderful it was to have that newspaper. And he says, and I wish you were there to help proof it. And I went, I guess I used to do that, didn't I? But things have changed.
Yes.
What is the offering this coming weekend for?
Well, Friday night we have for our Compassion Ministries. We have made some commitments throughout the conference, and we have partnered with both ADRA and Community Services from the NAD. And so we have a number of projects running throughout Alberta. So we have additional commitments this year because of COVID on that. We have our evangelism offering on the main service on Sabbath. You know, evangelism has changed. We've seen some online. We have had speakers from the U.S. Some of our churches have had speakers from South America, and so we've had to cancel some events. There's been some expenses incurred in other areas. So, but despite everything going on with COVID, you know, we are here to reach people for Christ, and we want to continue with our evangelism. And so that is the main service on Sabbath, and then Sabbath evening is our traditional offering for camp, and we have a particular project. We desperately need a maintenance building for our equipment to be able to store it, to keep it clean and out of the weather. We went to one of the large dealerships in Red Deer, and we got, I actually had Rod Schaefer do that for me, a friend, and Rod is one of the most supportive people I know out there, and they gave us an estimate about how much savings there would be if you could put your equipment, and they looked at things like reduced maintenance, just being out of the weather, extending the life of the products. And so they said somewhere between 15 to 25%, and in which case the building would pay for itself in a very short period of time. And the neat thing is we call it the Blue Box building because of the hailstorm we had a few years ago. We have some recycled tin from our many roofs that we had to replace. Our sheets are still good. And so we're going to be able to use that for the roofing of it. So we're into recycling as well.
Well, you know, I could not figure out, I looked at the brochure and to see what the offerings were, and I want the blue box offering, and I thought, what in the world is that? So I'm glad you mentioned that, because maybe others wondered too. Okay, I'm going to go back to Pastor Hodder now, and I'm going to ask you about the last weekend of camp meeting. What's happening the last weekend?
Well, again, as it has been through the week, it's been a fairly full program considering it's been online. Tomorrow evening, of course, we're going to feature the Edmonton Filipino Church with Pastor Batkinsella, and we're looking forward to that.
I always call him Pastor Joseph.
Yeah, to make it easy. And then, of course, in the morning, we have our regular prayer times. We'll have Sabbath school and church. Church is going to be featured out of Edmonton South,
right,
with Pastor John Murley in the morning. The afternoon, at 3, I believe it is, there'll be a concert featuring a number of our musicians from Alberta, and that's always a fun thing. We won't be in an auditorium or out in the field, but we can be on our couches or I suppose outside if you have your device and listen in, and so that'll be great. The evening is going to feature the Edmonton Central Church and Pastor Hamstra. So we're looking forward to the program. It's very well done. People have put a lot of thought, a lot of prayer into it, and I believe this second and last weekend will be a great blessing to all of our participants.
Right, and I'm going to just put a plug in for the youth, because
And
the youth
yes.
are also having services during the same time as the adults. The first one, the church service, is by Matthew Persante. Pastor Persante will be preaching in the youth, and you know, those, if you haven't listened to them, go and listen to those sermons. Be still. You know,
Yes.
there's been times that I've listened and I'm going, it's quiet in my house and it's still, and it has impacted me. So Sabbath Church is Matthew Persante, and the last one is Adam Bialy, Pastor Bialy. He comes from Calgary. We're featuring the north, but the youth did everything a little bit differently and had pastors from all over the conference. So there's the youth going on, there's the adult going on. It's going to be full.
There's something for everyone, and as I said, I've just been so pleased with everybody's willingness, but even more than willingness, their excitement about offering the very best that they can during this time. So it's been a great experience.
I will say, Debbie, that one of my surprises of virtual camp meeting has been the number of viewings that our youth pastors have had on our youth meetings. It really surprised me, the support that we see there.
Well, you know, I multitask. So I have the adult one and I have the youth one. And I turn this one down when this one I want louder. And I go back and forth. But I've listened to both of them. And they've been powerful, powerful sermons. I just have to say something about the music. Every night the music has been exceptional. You know, in both youth and adult. Last night's we had a variety from the Red Deer Church, and it was so phenomenal to hear.
It was.
And you know, even if you didn't sing along, I had it in my head, but I didn't know some of the songs. But you know, the music has been phenomenal through the whole week. And so to put that all together is something else. You know, we have to say kudos to the IT department and how they know how to do this, because I don't even know how to turn my computer on sometimes. But you know, to get this all together has been really, really amazing.
As we wind down, Debbie, if you don't mind, I'd just like to, I feel really impressed, and Gary, I hope I don't put you on the spot, but I feel really impressed, especially with the offering and all the things that are happening in our conference. We've had fires, we've had floods in Fort McMurray, A number of things have been happening. The rain has been a blessing, but it has also threatened the farmers' crops. And we have a lot of farmers in our congregations. We have viewership from more than six countries. The UK, the Ukraine, South Africa, Australia, Canada, the US, several countries. And the heart of ministry that we have, I want to just say, I'm so impressed that our heart of ministry is large and that we're desirous of sharing the Word of God to all that will listen. And we really appreciate the support online. And we'd like to encourage you to continue to support in every way possible by viewing, by giving. I want to ask the President, if you don't mind, just giving us a word of prayer as we conclude towards the end. I don't want to take away from what you need to do, but I feel it would be great for our President to just pray for us, for those concerns, offerings, the crisis and the viewership and the blessings that each family will receive from this.
I'm going to ask him to do that in just a minute.
Okay.
But I would like to have some final words from you about, going forward. How is it going to be to go forward? And then we'll come back and bless the rest of camp meeting.
I assume you're meaning going forward beyond camp meeting.
Yes, like
in the work that we do and so forth. Of course, none of us have a crystal ball. We are all observing the news and following it along and so forth. At the beginning, I wondered if there'd be much that we could do with everything shut down and churches not being available and schools closed and so forth. But there was an amazing transformation that took place, almost like a butterfly from a caterpillar sort of experience. And within a very short time, pastors were visiting their members online, and we soon were going into Teams and Zoom and different things and offering programming and offering sermons and going almost like back to church, only without the physical contact. Bible studies were being done online, communion services.
Yes.
People were trying to figure out how to baptize online, all sorts of things. But in a very short time, we turned it around, and a lot of ministry was taking place. I know at the office, typically in the course of a week, most of us have about 20 meetings that we attend online, various kinds with our own internal things and with the union and with Berman and et cetera, with the North American Division. And meetings with local churches and meetings with business people, and it's almost gotten to the place where it's more happening because we don't travel, but we fit in more meetings. And so going forward, I think we're all anxious for the time when we can get back together and to be able to see each other and to fellowship and to enjoy meals together and all of that. We will have to be patient. It looks like, as we stand today, that the COVID thing is not going anywhere.
That's right.
In the short term, and probably the second wave is happening now. We do all hope and anticipate that there'll be vaccines and treatments rolling out in the fall, certainly into the new year. And we'll be able to have that opportunity to get back to life and enjoy camp meeting the way we traditionally do, and the food fairs and all of the things that we do
that we've missed.
That we miss, and we miss the people. We miss the people. I enjoy the many occasions when you're just walking across, the field, and someone will come from one of their trailers, and you have a conversation, and you reminisce, and you encourage and pray for each other, and so we're looking forward to that time coming back again. And so in the meantime, I want to wish everyone that you stay safe and stay well, and we look forward to seeing you again.
Okay, I just would like to thank all of the viewers that have tuned in and listen to this program. You know, this is usually something that happens at camp meeting in a small booth, but this has been a treat to have people online with me. This one, I think maybe one more that we've done in person. But you know, I have enjoyed it. I hope that you have had a chance to look and see some of the different ministries that I focused on this particular week, because usually I can't do that at camp meeting. So I hope that you have gained a little more information about some of the things that happen here in our province and in our conference. I would like to ask Pastor Hodder if you would bless us now.
Certainly. Our Father in heaven, we are here today to thank you again for your guidance and blessing in our lives, for your constant companionship and being near to us. As people, we experience all sorts of events in our lives, as has been mentioned by Pastor Wayne. Events that sometimes are good, sometimes are less than ideal, and we wish they weren't part of our everyday lives. But we're grateful that you are with us, that you give us the wisdom and the guidance to see us through the COVID and continuing to minister, and the blessing of technology that allows us to at least interact with each other virtually, and to be aware that there's a brighter day coming and that we'll be able to be together again. But the greatest blessing of all is that we know we will spend eternity together and won't have to deal with the many challenges and nasty things that happen in this world. So we thank you. We invite you to continue to bless our people here in Alberta and beyond, and grant them health and happiness. And we pray that soon you'll wrap up the affairs of this world, and that we can be present with you. So bless us, we ask, in Jesus' name. Amen.